And welcome once again to Dayton's City Council meeting for March of 2020. Ms. Donna Ledger, can you please have a roll call?
Mayor Baker.
Here.
Member Volter.
Here.
Member Neary.
Here.
Member Baszler.
Here.
Member Cornett. Here. Member Burns.
Here.
Member Lynn.
Here.
City Administrator Gibson.
Here.
City Attorney Edge.
Here. Full house, and we love it when that happens. So if we could all now please rise for a moment of silence and pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. All right, we have a special presentation brought to us by Sanitation District Number 1.
I'm going to speak tonight, if you don't mind.
Oh, we don't mind at all, sir.
I'm Adam Cheney, Executive Director with SD1. Met some of you in the room. I think you've had some conversations in previous meetings about our programs, but tonight I'm really going to cover a video that we produced, and it's in response to, over the last few years, our storm events seem to be getting larger and larger. They don't seem to be, they are getting larger and larger, inundating assets that previously weren't inundated with water. So with that, instead of me telling you about the program, I'm going to go ahead and roll the video. It's going to explain our stormwater program. It's really going to explain the limitations to our system, and then explain the programs that we have to mitigate some of the stormwater issues across the region. So with that, I'll go ahead and play the video.
Sanitation District Number 1 takes its role as Northern Kentucky's stormwater utility seriously. We strive to manage stormwater runoff within our service area. As you might imagine, that's no easy task. As Northern Kentucky developed, long before SD1 assumed control of the region's stormwater management, cities and counties owned and maintained stormwater infrastructure. Regulations were less stringent, drainage plans were not always a priority, and storm pipes were often inadequate or never formally dedicated to public ownership. The result is a storm system that has a mix of privately and publicly owned infrastructure that can become overwhelmed by wet weather events in some areas. Depending on a neighborhood's topography, that can lead to floodwater that ends up in yards, or worse, inside homes. Fast forward to 1999, when federal stormwater regulations were passed requiring cities and counties to meet certain minimum stormwater runoff standards. Since Northern Kentucky's cities and counties had different stormwater practices, and because stormwater runoff doesn't recognize political boundaries, community leaders felt a regional approach to federal stormwater permitting was the best solution. After several years of consideration, SD1 became a co-permittee in 2003, with over 30 cities and counties across Northern Kentucky to administer federal stormwater permitting responsibilities. During the study period, it was also determined that a regional approach to stormwater asset maintenance was needed. Interlocal agreements and subsequent asset transfer agreements were enacted between SD1 and co-permittees outlining asset maintenance responsibilities, with the first assets being transferred to SD1 in 2009. The transfer agreements require SD1 to maintain assets at the same level of service as when they were transferred. There is no mandate to expand stormwater infrastructure throughout the system to meet current stormwater standards, as space and financial limitations would make this impossible. Because of our region's development history and the spatial and financial realities associated with stormwater management, regional flooding issues can only be mitigated. They can never fully be eliminated. Just like bridges have weight limits, our region's stormwater system, even after improvements have been made, cannot handle an unlimited amount of stormwater flow. The goal of the stormwater utility is to mitigate stormwater runoff issues as much as possible, while keeping the costs associated with stormwater management reasonable for all customers. Because the stormwater program and its associated fee structure have not been fully understood by a large segment of our community, ongoing efforts are being made to clarify SD1's role as the region's stormwater manager. Although SD1 is not obligated to expand pipes to meet current standards, we strive to mitigate the highest priority flooding issues across the region based on resource availability. In order to achieve this goal, SD1 developed a priority matrix and a clearly defined scope of the stormwater utility in 2018. The priority matrix prioritizes all stormwater-related issues SD1 is aware of throughout the region. This is done by ranking potential projects against all other projects based on risk to public health, property damage, and the environmental impact. Once projects are prioritized, the SD1 board determines which projects, if any, will be funded through its annual budgeting process. The scope of the stormwater utility establishes level of service standards for projects that have been identified through the prioritization process. In general, SD1 strives to meet the same standards as new development. When new development standards cannot be met because of space or financial limitations, the scope allows for a level of service to improve the problem to the maximum extent possible. Co-permittees often have specific stormwater issues that are important to their municipality, but do not rise high enough on the regional priority matrix to warrant SD1 funding. For these cases, SD1 offers several funding programs to help mitigate their specific stormwater-related issues. These include public and private cost-share programs. It's also important to remember that our region's stormwater system is complex and dynamic, and even after improvements have been made, it cannot handle an unlimited amount of stormwater flow. When the system is overwhelmed by heavy rainfall, overland flooding, or the risk of basement backups may still exist in some areas. Given these realities and limitations of the region's stormwater program, SD1 established the Backup Assistance Program in 2017 to bring immediate relief to property owners who face sanitary sewer backups caused by significant rain events. SD1 strives to eliminate all sanitary sewer backups and highly recommends all customers experiencing backup issues contact SD1 immediately to apply for funding to install a backup prevention device. Property owners should also consult their insurers to determine the proper type of coverage to protect their assets.
Like I said, really that video was produced after we developed our stormwater handbook and that outlined from top to bottom our programs. And Angela, did we bring our handbooks with us tonight?
Yes, we did.
So you all have a copy of the stormwater handbooks. The stormwater handbooks go into more detail about the programs, our cost-sharing programs, a little bit more history of the stormwater utility itself. So with that, I'll just open it up to questions either about the handbook or about the video or from the audience, either one.
So it used to be your backflow prevention valve program, and I don't know if it's this way anymore, I just want to ask. Does the applicant have to pay for that up front and then get reimbursed? Or can the applicant have a licensed plumber do the work and it be
Yeah, we
paid?
recently changed that. We changed the parameters, so we moved it from $5,000 to $10,000 max. And we also now allow a check from SD1 directly to the plumber. So we made, based on the response from some of the folks who would like to participate in the program but couldn't, we made some significant changes in the last year just to get as many people into that program as possible.
Thank you.
What is typical cost for the backflow device to be placed in the yard?
In standard conditions, about $3,500.
Okay.
You know, when you get into tight, quarters in river cities, downspout disconnects, some other issues in the urbanized area, it could creep a little higher. Our max is now $10,000 because we did run into a couple circumstances where those costs were above $5,000 threshold. So, but a typical backflow prevention valve would be anywhere from, again, typical $3,500 to $5,000 to install that. But that is 100% our cost.
Does insurance cover any of those costs?
We cover that cost. SD1 pays for all of that.
Sir, I'll make a comment since I'm the vocal one of this council about this situation. First off, I want to tell you thank you for coming, giving the presentation. I appreciate that. But my problem is, it's like putting the cart before the horse.
Okay.
Our problem is done here. now we're getting what sanitation can do and can't do. So I appreciate you, but I don't think it's gonna resolve our problem that we have in the present situation.
Okay.
The only other question, I do have one other
Can I ask
question.
you what the problem is, and maybe I can help you? What's your problem in Dayton, Kentucky?
I'll leave that up to the mayor and the city administrator.
Okay.
Well, I do have another question for you.
Okay.
In the last, I'll say 3 years,
Yes.
where has most of your money been devoted to?
That's a long answer to
Well,
a simple question.
has it been on new development or other issues?
The majority of our funds, SD1 funds, goes towards sanitary sewer overflow mitigation around the region, primarily in the river cities. Okay, that's the simplest way I can put it. Our sanitary sewer overflow, which would be combined sewer, which is outside the scope of our stormwater program.
I understand.
Wastewater fees primarily, the largest chunk of our money goes towards sanitary sewer overflow mitigation, which is mandated by our consent decree. And mainly, those are in the river cities.
Thank you.
So. And again, that is a very short answer to a short question. We do spend a lot of money everywhere else, but I would say the majority of that money goes to that area.
I'll try to answer the question on what the problem is we have some residents that have some pipe in their yard that SD1 has said that is privately owned by the owner.
Okay?
It's pretty obvious what happened, that when the property was developed, the developer didn't do whatever he was supposed to do to turn it over to the city, therefore the city couldn't turn it over to SD1, and now it falls on these people to repair this pipeline. That's what we're...
Yeah, we have a third, or I have another video, I don't know if we brought with us, that we have a cost share program for those instances. So we have a private pipe program where if the city applies, we will work with the city together and the homeowner to fix instances where the city feels like it's necessary. So we have a lot of programs, and that's one of the programs to help kind of legacy pipe that didn't get transferred that the city still feels they want to contribute to.
I guess what I don't understand, and probably the homeowners don't understand as well, is why sanitation district wouldn't take that over once it's realized that there's an issue. And it's obviously not a personal drain pipe or sewer line.
If it's obviously not, it would have been transferred to us through the transfer agreement. So we have to, if you saw that, we have to prioritize even the fixes to our own system, right? I can't get to every pipe that I even own. I have to prioritize that because we have inherited such a large system, and we score our pipes, we go out and fix the worst ones first. It takes a ton of money to do that. We can't do it overnight. There is limitations, and of course, limitations on how much we can charge folks. So we prioritize the best we can. We get the worst pipes fixed first, but I still can't even fix the pipes I own. So asking us to fix our own pipe and then pipes we don't own is kind of a tall order. So we're doing the best we can with our own pipes, but to ask us to fix private pipes that were never transferred to us, that's the reason that we can't do that. However, we have recognized that that's an issue, and we want to help as much as possible, and we want to leverage the funds to help as many people as possible. And we just set this program up last year for this reason. We understand there's a lot of stuff that fell through the cracks. We want to help in every instance possible. But we also have to be fair to our ratepayers, right? And if you're a ratepayer, I can't go fix pipes that I don't own. But I can help folks who have stormwater problems because I think that's our role in the community. So that's the answer to your question. We have an unlimited amount of pipes that need to be fixed. Because once they get fixed, we go to the next group. And by the time we get through that system, the ones we fixed 10 or 20 years ago have new repairs that need to be done. So it's just an ongoing perpetual cycle. I think you all understand that part.
So how do we ever know how many in the city, and in any city, are like that. I mean, when you buy a home now, do you have to have an inspection on the pipelines that are in
Yes.
your yard?
It's
Make sure you
just
don't
like
know.
your air conditioner, it's just like your roof, it's just like anything
I
else.
don't think anybody's ever thought of checking.
Well, that's why I'm here, to be
sanitation
honest
lines.
with you. We need to start communicating this. I mean, you know, for a long time, we've just kind of did SD1 and we're gonna put our head in the sand, and when this stuff happens, we're gonna tell you it's not our problem. Those days are over at SD1. We're out in the public, we're trying to talk to folks, we're trying to let them know what we can and can't do. That was the purpose of the video. We're trying to let you know what we can and we can't do. But part of the messaging is, yes, if you buy a residence, you need to be aware. Even if there's a drainage pipe in the backyard that the developer put in, right? Very few instances of folks have that issue, but everyone has a lateral. Everyone has a lateral that comes from their house to the street to a public sewer. That's your responsibility as a homeowner. So when you buy a piece of property, you need to check the easements, you need to check your laterals, and it's just buyer beware, unfortunately, in these
But
instances.
this isn't a lateral coming out for their property. This is a storm sewer going across their property,
14
coming down
inch.
up the hill.
14 inch?
Well, my question would be, why didn't the city take that over, and we wouldn't be having this discussion? If the city would have taken ownership of that,
The house was built in 1959, I couldn't answer that question.
well, you understand my point.
Right, I do,
mean,
but I just.
Honestly, I mean, if you're concerned about, the city should say, okay, well, I'll take over ownership of it, and then we'll work together, and then you can transfer it back, but we can't, I mean, that was a message in the video. If it were a private pipe that was not inherited by the city never maintained it, we can't take ownership of it. That's, the legal document is a transfer agreement, and it listed all the assets. We can't take ownership of it.
So-
If I don't own it, I can't fix it, unless we do the program that I think Angela outlined to you.
So are you saying if the city takes ownership and we don't do anything to it, then we can give you ownership?
No, we will only take ownership if it meets our specs and our standards. So you would have to fix it and make it to our specs and our standards. You all had one shot at transferring it sight unseen, and that was back when we had our transfer agreements with every city in northern Kentucky. Now that we understand what our system is, we only accept assets that meet our standards.
So the latest, that would have been 2009?
That would have been probably the last transfers, 2000.
So anywhere between 2003 and 2009, 15 years ago, whatever, we would have made that request.
Well, you would have put that in the list of assets that were transferred, and we would have accepted it. Sight unseen, carte blanche, we would have taken it.
Sir, I got a question for you. If I could, please.
I think you need to ask these folks if that's okay.
I want to make one statement, and once again, I want to tell you, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
And this ain't all your problem. We haven't done our job, that we is me.
Okay,
I've sat on this council, and the project that we're talking about, been going on for 6 years now. We haven't done our job. That's me. So I sympathize with the homeowners. Now we gotta fix the problem, and I don't know how to fix it.
I tell you how to fix it, you just come together with SD1 and the homeowner, and we fix it, that's why the program's there. I don't understand why that's an issue. We put the program together to help you get through this situation.
Well, one of it is an issue is because of the cost. I mean, we got an estimate.
No,
No?
our estimate is still a different one.
Oh, never mind.
Now, we'll be clear, if we did do that, which I think is the right way to do it, we would not take ownership. We could take a fix, okay, so if you wanted to upsize it, make it to our standards, put it to our standards, we would own it, but that would be under a 50/50 program, wouldn't be under the homeowner project. If you want to just put a Band-Aid on it, we contribute to that too, to just help solve the problem. So you can do smaller fixes, you can do whatever you want. We're not asking the question, we're more of a grant. If you feel like it's important to you, we'll help you fund it. There are certainly some restrictions to the program, but they're pretty minimal. So, can somebody help me and tell me, other than the cost, why this can't be done through our private pipe participation program?
I'd imagine that homeowners weren't expecting that cost. I mean, any cost beneath the ground for a 36-inch pipe to come on their permit.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Lenz? Have you gotten an estimate?
No, I have not, actually. I did reach out to SD1, and actually Angela's been a good ambassador for SD1. She does an excellent job.
She does, thank you.
I think part of the problem is that the 36-inch concrete pipe that takes all the water off the top of the hill of Dayton Pike, there's an obstruction there or a blockage there. I think Michael Giffen has given me some information from SD1 back in 2017. They feel as if there was some flow through the pipe, but on heavy rains, that 36-inch pipe isn't taking all the water. And I'm not saying they have to replace the pipe, but it sure would be nice if SD1 would maybe use one of their power jetters and maybe try to clear that pipe out a little bit, maybe get an idea what's going on here. Because I understand replacing that pipe is very expensive.
Right.
And the city's kind of drawn a line in the sand to say that they'll do the one-third and one-third, but I don't think any of the people in the city have $200,000 or $300,000 to replace a pipe that maybe needs to be replaced. But I think it would be nice if SD1 would be kind enough to run one of their power jetters through that pipe to see if it's open and maybe run one of your fancy cameras through there. I think that would be excellent.
Well, at last council meeting, you said someone was coming the next day to run the camera through. They didn't.
CME did run through my branch line to make sure it was open, but they didn't have the equipment to run through that 36-inch pipe. I think it requires some kind of a special camera on wheels, and that pipe had a lot of water in it, and they couldn't run their camera through it.
Okay.
So I had a CME, they went ahead and they looked at it a little bit, they didn't have the equipment, but anyway, it's a pretty big expense, and I think it would be nice if maybe, if nothing else, if SD1 would take a look at it, and I think it would address a lot of the issues up on the hill.
Yeah, well, I can't commit that we're going to do that because, again, we have a lot of people who have private pipe issues, so I can't commit to you that we're going to do that. However, I can talk to the city and see if there's some kind of special circumstance, some kind of arrangement where we can try to come together and solve this problem. I mean, I'm here, actually, I didn't realize why I was here. I guess I was here to give you the video. I didn't realize we were talking about one specific issue. But again, I'm not going to commit to fixing or inspecting or jetting any private pipes tonight, because as soon as I do that, everybody and their brothers are going to want us to come out and fix, jet, or inspect a private pipe. So I just want to be clear, and I wouldn't tell you, I'm not going to, I just want to be honest, really. I just think it's some time to be, straightforward about what we can and can't do. At the same time, we are a stormwater utility, and we want to help, don't get me wrong, but I think it would come through conversations with the city rather than private homeowners. I hope you appreciate it.
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay.
And also, I was going to ask, what's the typical size of a private pipe? What do you define as a private pipe? How big is it typically?
They can go up to 48, 54 inches.
A private pipe, huh?
Well, you have to classify. Remember, private pipe is also under commercial development, right? So they range in sizes. I mean, we have detention structures that are private that probably have even larger pipe. So there is no limit to the size of, within reason, of course. But there's no special category of private pipe falls within a certain size. So.
Okay, so the city takes over the pipes, and we contact Sanitation One. Do they come in and inspect it and say, yeah, okay, we'll take it, and there maybe doesn't need a repair? How does that
Again, without
inspection
knowing
work?
exactly where the pipe is, and Angela might know better than I, because I think she's got a little more history on this. We would have to look at the pipe. We would have to kind of look at the history, which I think we've done.
Yes.
Again, there really isn't a mechanism for us to take over those private pipes unless, the way that our documents are written and the transfer agreements are written, that the city would have to have shown that they have some maintenance records on this pipe before we would take it over. And at that point in time, again, that would be the first hurdle. The second hurdle would have to be in a shape that would meet our standards, and without knowing this pipe specifically, I wouldn't even be able to answer the question. Again, we're not trying to pick up any more pipe either, for that matter. But we are trying to help the cities. So, that's why we're here. We're co-permittees, we're partners in the stormwater. So that's why we create the programs. But as you can probably tell, our programs are pretty black and white, and I really don't like to deviate from them because they're well thought out and they make sense for the situations that we've encountered. There's always exceptions, and if you all feel that this is an exception, we can talk about it. But I think we've talked about this, or you all have, several times at this meeting so far. So I'm not going to give you any new answers that I don't think you've already heard. And if I am tonight, I'm going to revert back to the ones that were given to you because they're going to be more accurate than what I'm telling you tonight. So
I have a question on the private pipe issue. So does individuals that have these private pipes or entities that have these private pipes, does SD1 or cities or developers have the right to tie into them?
no, I mean, it would have to have the permission of the private owner. If they're private pipes, you would have to have permission from the private owner to tie into those pipes, yes.
Well, thanks, I mean, I appreciate it, it makes me understand a little better. I know that it's a huge problem for our homeowners, and it's kind of holding up another project that needs to get done, so there's some...
Well, we do have the 50/50 program as well. I mean, that would be another avenue. I'm sure you've explored that. I think have we done any 50/50s with Dayton?
Yeah, we've done a few.
We just did one.
Yeah. So I think your city administrator has all the tools in the toolbox based on our programs, and unfortunately, it just sounds like something that fell through the cracks, and it's not fitting a program. Not because it doesn't fit the program, because the costs. It sounds to me it's just.
Well, it does kind of worry me because I just wonder how many other places are like that in the city.
Well, we did, over the course of the last couple years, we did for these reasons, we went back and our stormwater engineers came to each city and we redid all the maps just to make sure that we had the correct assets on the maps. And we just did an audit. I don't know if it was with Michael or not. Did you do that audit with our guys? So Michael, in the last, I would say, 18 months, has sat down with our engineers, looked at our maps and said, is this good, is this not good? We did a full audit of every pipe, so, I mean, for these reasons, again, I'm not trying to skirt the blame or be defensive about our programs, I'm just being realistic and letting you all know how this went down and what the obligations are, so, but for these reasons, we wanted to make sure that we didn't have pipes that we should have owned fall through the cracks, and we spent, not just with the city of Dayton, but every city in our region sat down and redid our maps as kind of another check from the 2009 transfer, just to make sure that these things weren't falling through the cracks. So that's just been happening in the last 18 months. So, I mean, we're doing, I feel, of course, I'm biased, we're doing more than we ever have. We're trying to put programs in place that help as many people as possible, but we're still limited by our legal obligations and, to be fair, to the rest of the ratepayers who pay into the stormwater program, who aren't getting their private pipes fixed. So, again, I hope you all understand that. And anything else we can do under the guidelines of our programs, I'd be happy to talk about or talk to you further about it. So.
Adam, if I could just add, our maps are readily available on our website, and you can scale in and you can go through the layers and you can see what's in your community. The private pipes aren't marked on there, but you can at least see the public assets, and then the transfer agreement is included in the packet of information, along with the letter regarding the audit, and there's some contact information on that letter or you can contact me directly, and we can provide you with the map that shows you where all the private things are, if you want to see that.
We've got a link on our website under residents and community that links directly to the SD1 stormwater assistance program, so that's available on Dayton's website as well.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions outside of the specific, anything else on the video? Any other questions from the audience on anything else while I'm here?
I know you asked for both council and administration's questions. Does anybody else And you also asked for public questions. I want to make sure if anybody from the crowd has any questions. Anybody out there want to ask any questions to SD1?
So, the question was earlier, this gentleman over here mentioned about SD1 tying into the private line,
Yes.
and you said it's not possible.
He asked if the private pipe could be tied into.
And you said no.
Without permission. We can if we have permission to tie it.
Okay, well, the so-called private line that's up on Dayton Pike is having a problem with water issues. They, SD1 tied new catch basins into it. Where'd they get the permission from? Nobody knocked on my door. If it's my pipe.
I'd have to see, Angela, you have a...
They're not, there is 3 sticks of public pipe underneath the right-of-way. For the most part, any pipe that's under a right-of-way is a public pipe, because it's under the right-of-way.
So you're telling me that the 36-inch line through there doesn't have a right of way? So if we don't, I can crush it.
It's not a public right-of-way. The catch basins that you're speaking of at Chateau?
Yeah, I'm talking about the private 36-inch private line through my yard. If there's no easement for it, that means I can bust it up, fill it in, I ain't gotta worry about it no more. I'm done.
Right, you can do that
Okay,
if
that's all I need
you
to
would
know.
like to do that.
Yeah. Now, it's free country, you can do what you want, that doesn't mean there's not repercussions for that, and I'm not...
My lawyer advised me to do it, so well, he's got my back, so whatever it does.
Well, again, that's why we set up these programs, but, I mean, we don't want to be adversarial about this, but the difference between a public right-of-way, so a public right-of-way is where a street or a sidewalk for the public use comes through.
But if there never was a right of way to put this 36-inch line in that doesn't belong to nobody, it's mine.
Okay, you're confusing right-of-way to easement, right? We don't have an easement because it wasn't a public pipe. Angela's point is, if it crosses a public street or public sidewalk, public property that's in the right-of-way, all those pipes are SD1 pipes because they're under a public right-of-way, or road, or sidewalk, you understand? So when it gets outside the right-of-way, that section that you're talking about is private, so it doesn't have an easement, but we're talking the same language. I just want to clarify that the right-of-way is. So when you asked, could we tie into it, we did. We tied into it in our own public pipe at the right-of-way, right? And I know this gets confusing. That's why the video was produced. You know, there is a hodgepodge of network of private to public, and it's very confusing. And again, that's why I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but that's why we put these programs together, so that we could cover all the bases.
It's just another politic to gather homeowners, that's all it is. Bunch of bullshit, whatever it is.
Anybody else from the public like to address SD1?
I have a clarifying question.
Okay.
Is that my assumptions may be based on false information, but with other utilities, once you're outside the house, typically water or electric, you know, if you need to run a new power service to your building, they'll take care of it, up to the building.
Yes.
Why is it that SD1 has the approach that past, like the house essentially, or outside, whatever?
It's consistent. Your water line goes to your meter box. And your meter is probably, I don't know how long your front yard is, but, so it's not inconsistent. Maybe inconsistent with Duke, but you have private service from every utility. So we're consistent with the water. You know, you have a section of private, lateral, so to speak, from your water, from your meter. I'm sorry, from the pit to the house. It's the same thing. Our public system goes along the right-of-way, and as you connect where it meets the public right-of-way in our public system. So it's pretty typical. It's pretty typical, so.
Anyone else? Well, thank you for your time, sir.
All right, thank you all, appreciate it.
Now, the agenda, we'd like to move along to the department head report. So first up, we'll ask Chief Hatfield about the Dayton Police Department.
You have my report for the month.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, last month, I think it's been pretty steady. Have too much going on, pretty much at all. I'll say the key word. I didn't have anything to add to it. So if you guys have any questions.
Any questions for the police department? Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Going in with first responders, we'll go up to Chief Atkins for your fire department report, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. You all have our report, not a whole lot to add to it. We've been busy, so in fact, I just cleared a fire. On the way here, we had a fire this afternoon in Bellevue, so just cleared that on the way to the meeting tonight. Not a whole lot else to add to my report.
Everybody safe in Bellevue?
Absolutely.
It's good to hear.
What's did your job, so, as always. Questions?
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Atkins?
Easter egg hunt, April the 7th, no wait, 4th. We need a ride to the park for the Easter Bunny.
You know, we take care of Santa. I'm not sure the bunny's on the list. What's the date?
April 4th.
April 4th.
Saturday.
We will make that happen.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other bunny or non-bunny requests for the chief?
We need a bunny.
If need be.
I haven't called Cam yet.
He's the best. He's the best buddy. Anybody else for fire department? Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
Mr. Yoder, with your economic development report, please, sir.
Yes. This is good. That's our report this month, but some good news. One of the ribbon cutting for Galactic Chicken on Thursday, March 5th at noon. We'll set that out. Then we're for Tapestry at the River. They're doing ribbon cutting. They're going to push that back towards April. They have some corporate meetings in March, and so that won't be there. I want to talk about the event. Hickory Dickory Doc Peters Candies and the Main Street Board are going to have a winter festival, a family fun festival with games, a bouncy house, people dressed up in Wizard of Oz costumes on Saturday, March 14th from noon to 5, the parking lot across the city building and the First Baptist parking lot in there. So we're all working on that, and so if you have friends and young ones or just young at heart, please come on out. The Main Street Board is working on plans for updating the Dayton fleet for 2020. Looking to see if we can get some produce vendors in here. We're going to get some of them soon. Our grants are moving forward. Bar, we had a meeting last month, and out there we approved a handicap ramp for 304 6th Avenue, the new doctor's office going in there. So that's been approved, and I would expect to see that going. The next thing we have going for them is they're going to be putting the windows back in that building. So I'm waiting for those designs to come in. They're talking about taking out the vinyl siding that blocks them currently up and open up with picture windows like they would have been originally. So that's going to end up being very nice. So a lot of other good activities, building, selling and stuff like that. So I expect a lot of activity this spring. Any questions from council? Okay. Everybody need a poster? Got one? You want one? All right, good, it's all yours. Please bring around town.
Thank you, Mr. Yoder.
I'll set the presentation.
Thank you very much, sir.
There you go.
Now on to the mayor's report.
Forgot somebody.
Good report. My bad.
That's okay.
Very important, one of our favorites. So, Mr. Lyles, with your report today, sir.
Thank you, thank you. I sent everyone a copy of my report, just a brief summary. There were 53 letters sent out for the month of February, 36 for violations and 17 for citations. There were 29 cases that were closed for the month of February. I wrote 18 parking tags and towed 5 vehicles. That's all I have. Anybody has any questions, concerns?
Questions for Mr. Lyles?
Actually, I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I sent you an email on this, but the amount of garbage that is allowed now, is that something that the city changed, or is that just what?
I'm not sure, that was via the contract that was agreed upon in the City Republic before I got here.
Okay, I'm just asking because people are saying they think it's a typo because it's 6 90-gallon cans
It's not a typo.
per resident?
It's not a typo, that's in there. Used to be 4 cans or
In one big item. Just,
A lot of
might as well kind of go over that since we're talking about it. One large item consists of, could be a mattress, could be a chair, but anything that is cloth or any type of material has to be wrapped securely, wrapped with plastic and secured. Whether it be shrink wrap or plastic, you can get those at the city for your mattresses and for your couches and chairs, and you only pay what it costs the city. So we have those, really what you have to get is just make sure you get the tape to secure those items. And so we do what we can, but it is 6 90-gallon, and we ask that people get those containers. That's the problem. When you put your 4 or 5 white 13-gallon bags out and you lay them on the sidewalk, the dogs, the cats, and the birds, and everybody gets to them before the garbage people, and then that's when we end up sending out a citation. So we just ask that everybody purchase containers. That's a requirement of the ordinance.
Does sanitation give a resident one? I remember
sorry?
getting some free cans in the past from the garbage.
Republic?
company. Yeah.
It's like $3 a month.
Phil, can a resident can't call for a special pickup, can they not, if they have an unusual?
They can call Republic. Now, if they may have 2 or 3 large items, Republic may say, okay, as long as they're secure, we'll go ahead and pick them up. And then they may not. There is usually a cost associated with the special pickup, or even a larger pickup for that particular day. So if they're coming on the day that's assigned, whether it be Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, they call Republic, get the number at the city building, we'll provide that. And it really just depends on what it is.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Lyles? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Now can I move on to the mayor's report?
Sure.
I'm gonna pull it in. First of all, I want to say, probably noticed I have some eyes looking up here. That's because Mr. Baszler here and his folks have made an amazing project going on in the city of Dayton, which is called All Eyes on Dayton, Kentucky. Or if you find on social media, it's hashtag All Eyes on Dayton, Kentucky, or KY. So we're placing eyes around town. So you'll see them around town. It's going to be a fun little project. So feel free to take pictures, post them, and make sure that we, during the month of March, that all eyes are on Dayton, Kentucky. So it's for the Eyes of March, correct, Mr. Baszler?
That's correct.
Awesome. Fun project, and we're excited to be a part of it. Second of all, I want to point out that in the last month, the city has worked with other cities such as Bellevue, Newport, and hopefully sooner or later Fort Thomas on water storm sewage removal. So the same things we were just talking about with SD1, we're working with an engineering group to make sure that all water that's coming off the hill, coming towards our river, is being properly dispersed. There is a decent program that we're trying to enter with those to make sure that Dayton is being represented with some dollars that are available. So more to come later, but we have been working very closely with these entities to make sure that we have proper stormwater removal. Lastly, for my mayor's report today, I want to point out a presentation Mr. Yoder has posted up there on the board here. And this is something that's very important, I believe, to everyone in the city concerning Route 8. So in the last couple of weeks, I went down to Frankfort, Kentucky, met with Secretary of Transportation, Mr. Gray. I met with Senator Schroeder, Representative Rachel Roberts, and spoken to the Governor, Andy Beshear, concerning some major concerns that we have concerning Route 8. So the way I presented this presentation to all those folks is in two different directions. One being urban and the other being rural. Urban would be, what we see right up here is a 0.48 mile stretch of land that goes from Clay Street all the way down to the end of the flood wall, and then rural goes beyond the flood wall down to Fort Thomas's land. So the state is obligated to make sure that all those land, or all those roads are navigable and taken care of. We do not believe that the state has done a good job in the past of taking care of those. Not only in the major issue that is beyond the flood wall to Fort Thomas, which is a 2.7 mile stretch of land, but also very importantly within this 0.48 mile stretch of land here. So in that 0.48 mile stretch, we have 70 plus homes, one assisted living facility that we all know is Spears Court, hundreds of residents, and we also have a industrial park that has many employees that are being serviced by this road that is completely the responsibility of the state. So what we're asking the state is for them to make sure that they're not thinking of that road all the way down to Fort Thomas as one road, but making sure that those folks are taken care of. Mr. Yoder? So as you can see here, this is 4th Avenue. If you drive down it, your shocks better be good. You might want four-wheel drive, and it's just not taken care of. So that's my foot right there. I have a size 14 foot. It fits well in my mouth sometimes. And this is a massive pothole that the state has not taken care of. There's another one. I don't think the video works on this one, does it?
Yeah, that's fine. Now we're rural.
So, all right, so now moving on to the rural. So that piece right there was between Clay and the flood wall, completely neglected by the state. Now, as far as the rural piece of land, it connects Dayton all the way down to Melbourne, Kentucky via Fort Thomas. It's considered a state route and a business route due to the slippage of the road. I think we all agree in this room that that road has basically been abandoned by the state. It's a massive landslide that we have not had any type of state assistance in over a year, and is completely disconnecting our citizens from other communities, which is causing a business impact as well as a traffic impact between us trying to move around. So what I'm asking for the state for is that we begin discussions on what are we going to do with this. It's a $60 million projection cost. So we can't expect for that to be an immediate ask to fix. But we have to ask the state to start these conversations. As you can see, that is a state road. That's a state road. And that's the slippage down past Auckland Marina that, I don't know if you all have made that trip down there, but obviously it's impassable and it's continuing to slide. So I wanted to make sure that everybody knows that we are actively taking acts to make sure that the state is paying attention to what we consider major problems within our region. So once again, we're meeting with state officials because it is their road. We've asked them, if you can't fix it, please let us, because we can fix it quicker than they if they're not going to pay attention to us. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. And that is my mayor's report for the day. We're moving along to the approval of minutes from the February 4th council meeting. Ms. Ledger? Do we have a motion for the approval of minutes?
Yeah, motion. I'll make that motion.
Second. Thanks. Motion is made. Second. Any comments?
Who did the second?
Mr. Holt. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Passes. Moving along to the ordinances orders. The second reading of the ordinance of 2020, number 1, the amending of Chapter 154 by adding event facilities and child care center as a conditional use in the R1 JJ zone.
City of Dayton, Kentucky, ordinance number 2020, number 1. An ordinance amending Chapter 154 of the Dayton Code of Ordinances, commonly referred to as the City of Dayton zoning ordinance, by adding event facilities and child care center as a conditional use in the residential 1 JJ zone. And that's the second reading.
So for a second reading, do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion, pass 2020, number 1.
Mr. Lynn's made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ladies first. Ms. Cornett made a second. Do we have any comments?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
you or the city administrator, could one of you explain exactly for the audience, for the rest of the citizens, exactly where this is at? Because at present, I think we have a daycare center already in an RJ1 zone. I mean, isn't Kate's Catering and up to Clay Street, isn't that the zone?
No, R1JJ is a very complex little algorithm for just a single-family zone. I don't know why they just don't say that. It's our largest zone in the community, encompasses a good deal of the community. Kate's Catering is in the central business district.
Okay.
The reason for childcare, that actually is just wording clarification in the text. There was a couple different things in different texts that had different words for daycare or childcare. So what this ordinance does is it defines them specifically.
Event centers, is the same thing?
No, event center is an addition. So as you know, we've been working for the last couple of years on trying to figure out a way to breathe life back into some of these commercial properties that are in single-family zones. What happens is when you get these single-family zones, or when you get a commercial building in a single-family zone, it has no use, because the only permitted use in a single-family zone is a single-family home. So what we've done over the last couple of years is that we've added in different conditional uses for specific commercial properties in these single-family zones so that they could be viable as commercial properties once again. So we've been approached by someone that has purchased the property and was looking into doing an event center. So that's how the process got started.
So this zone could be within warehouses or?
It's a conditional use, so meaning any request for a conditional use has to go before the planning and zoning board for approval. But it's even a little bit more rigid than that. It has to meet, so in this case, a event facility has to meet certain specifications in terms of square feet. Not just, you can't just turn any house into an event center.
Where do you find the description of the event center?
It should be in the text, is it not? I believe it is.
Event facility, a facility rented out for private events, whether family group or corporate in nature, where access by the general public is restricted. Term event facility does not include nightclubs, dance clubs, eating and drinking places, universities, church, any use open to the general public, any use for which tickets are sold to individuals or groups, private clubs, fraternities, or sororities. And of course, it has some restrictions, even with the event facility, which includes that it should be the adaptive reuse of a building or structure constructed prior to January 1st, 2020. No exterior alteration shall be permitted for purpose of increasing building capacity. May be included within or entered from within any use permitted in the zone. Sale of alcoholic beverages prohibited on the premises. And then there's some parking requirements for off-street parking.
So an event center that can't have alcohol?
No, they can have alcohol, they can't sell alcohol.
Yeah.
Interesting. So like a wedding venue, they could bring it in. Just can't sell it.
Essentially keep them from becoming a bar.
Do you have any more comments? Ms. Electric, may I please have a roll call for 2020 number 1?
Member Baszler?
I have to abstain.
Member Cornett?
Yes.
Member Burns?
Aye.
Member Lynn?
Aye.
Member Volter?
Aye.
Member Neary?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Second order for the evening would be 2020 number 2R, Romeo, declaring the city-owned property as surplus for 3 police cruisers.
City of Dayton, Kentucky, municipal order number 2020, number 2R. A municipal order declaring city-owned property as surplus and authorizing the mayor to dispose of 3 police cruisers. We have 2 2008 Ford Interceptors and 1 2009 Ford Interceptor.
Do I have a motion for 2020 number 2R?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Burns. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Volter. Do you have any comments?
My only comment is I hope we got cruisers in the budget.
Oh, you want these cruisers? No. Yes, sir. Roll call, please.
Member Cornett? Yes. Member Burns?
Aye.
Member Lynn?
Aye.
Member Volter?
Aye.
Member Neary?
Aye.
Member Baszler?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving along to the city administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I have 2 handicap parking requests. The first is on 328 Third Avenue. The applicant meets all the requirements as set forth in the ordinance. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve that.
Second.
Ms. Cornett and Mr. Lynn have made the motion in the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Ayes have it.
Second one is for 809 6th Avenue. Again, the applicant meets all the requirements as set forth by the ordinance. I'd like to ask for a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Volter and Mr. Baser have made the first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any comments? Any nays? Any abstentions? Ayes have it. Moving along to
Hold on, Mayor, if you
the...
don't-
Oh, my bad.
We're curious what your all's thoughts would be on us maybe presenting you all with a change of the handicap parking ordinance that would allow this to be handled in-house, so we don't have to keep doing these at every council meeting. Curious if there's anybody in favor of that?
I don't know, I mean, you're doing all the legwork already, checking it all out, making sure we abide by the ordinance.
I'll put together some language
Yeah.
and submit it to you all for next meeting. I figured that
I
might
was,
be a consensus that it's,
I was thinking, just let us know where they're going, so we just know.
yeah.
Because, you know, one thing about it, we do sometimes in certain blocks get overwhelmed with handicap parking spots. But I don't have a problem with it.
I think in the 6 years that I've been on council in there, it's never been denied.
Yeah, it
Because
just
they all meet
seems-
the
They meet the
requirements.
requirements.
Yeah, it just seems overkill. It's something that I think we could do in-house. We already investigated, as Danny said, so. Just want to make sure, if y'all are comfortable with that, we'll draft some language and present it next month. And that is all I have for my report, unless anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer. You all got a copy of my monthly report. Thank you, Mayor.
Welcome. Now I can open up the floor for the audience. So anybody from the audience who would like to approach council and administration, please take the podium, state your name and address. Going once, twice, closed. Do we have any unfinished business for the evening? Council? Administration? New business. We definitely have the Dayton Bellevue Memorial Day Parade, which is probably our biggest tradition, our proudest tradition. It's coming up on Memorial, for the day before Memorial Day, May 25th, 2020. It's 91 years we've been celebrating Memorial Day here on the Avenue. So, anybody have any comments on that? Of course, we welcome anybody who'd like to participate in the parade to please reach out to us or Ms. Sparks. She is taking care of the parade this year, as always. We appreciate that. And I believe tonight they're having a meeting, and Amanda Bowman is there on our behalf, so we certainly appreciate her work. Do we have any reason for executive session this evening?
No, Mayor.
With that, would anybody like to make a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Mr. Bolter? Mr. Lynn, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? We are closed. Thank you very much for the evening.